Chapter 12, Lesson 3, Moving West. Yes, we're talking about American expansionism and the move west. So, a few things to realize that, first of all, there were lots of reasons why people moved west of the Mississippi. And some of them were religious freedom, gold and silver, and particularly cheap land as well. It took 4 to 5 months to get there, and you had to bring everything you would need. Any furniture you want in a house, the materials you need to build a house, and just about everything you'd need, certainly food, oxen, all that stuff like that. They generally left in large groups called wagon trains because it was safer that way. And they started in the springtime because it got kind of cold early at times, and that would lead to lots of problems, especially if you were going over the Sierra Nevadas, like the Donner Party did. Now, this is a really famous image. It's talking about American expansion. If you look, there's a lot of things really interesting here. First of all, you've got, and this is from a little bit later, but you got the stagecoach coming. You got obviously the covered wagons moving on, people settling, moving in, and in the background a little bit later on, you see the railroad starting. This is sort of Lady Liberty. She's stringing down telegraph wires, which allow communications. In the background, you got boats and stuff like that going up a river. And right over here, you got the Native Americans being pushed out and the buffalo being pushed out. It's kind of a sad picture, but unfortunately, it's kind of accurate as well. Now, in terms of the trails that were used, there were bunches and bunches of different trails that were used. Some of the more popular ones, though, were the Santa Fe Trail, which ended up starting around here and then went down to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Again, remember, most of this stuff was owned by Spain and then Mexico after Mexico became independent. But then the Oregon Trail, that went up in this region here, all the way up to Oregon City, which is decidedly different environment, much warmer or much wetter, better for crops growing than probably Santa Fe is. So all these other trails as well. We'll come back to some of them partway through. Why they went, the primary reason was, at least the earliest people were for trapping beavers and using their fur, because they were literally just some of the more valuable things out there in terms of the environment, that they would just skin the beavers and then sell the fur. And it was really thick and really water resistant, so it made for a lot of money for the trappers. Later travelers started to see the land was good for timber farming as well in some areas. Now, the Mormon migration, they started in Nauvoo, which is all the way over here in Illinois, and they had a lot of problems because the Mormons believed differently than most Christians do in some aspects of Christian belief, and so what ended up happening was they got persecuted, and actually in some cases they were attacked, and so they decided to move out west. And if you see here, this was the path they took, and you see it went through a bunch of states. We got Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Wyoming, and down into Utah. And Brigham Young was the main leader of the group, and so that's why Brigham Young University is called that. Settled in Utah by the Great Salt Lake. Now, men who trapped furs, a lot of the early ones were called mountain men. We talked a little bit about this today in class, this idea of these groups of people that would just go out and hunt for furs, and this is just an image of what it looks like. And different mountain men, sometimes they were the forerunners of a lot of the people who would eventually settle in a region, and the people you could go to. One guy named Jim Bridger set up a trade outpost. Other people, James Beckworth was an escaped slave. One of the things that was always great about being out west, unless obviously you're a Native American, when you went out there, lots of people could start over. Whatever problems they had, they didn't have them once they got out there. So there was a lot of freedom and a lot of opportunity, and a lot of escape from a bad life out east. Now, in terms of the problem of people would pack all their stuff that they wanted, and they'd think about that, but sometimes they'd realize, you know what, my oxen are getting tired, my horses are getting tired, and they just would throw things out on the way because they wanted to lighten their load, throw things. I don't know if anybody tried to bring a piano or something like that, where you suddenly realize my oxen is really struggling, that maybe you'd want to throw that out. But this is a very famous landform called Chimney Rock. It looks sort of like a chimney, just kind of out of nowhere. And so a lot of people, this is a relief to see, but this was part of the way there, not all the way, and not even necessarily the hardest part. So, but people did tend to dump stuff once things got rough. One group that really expanded the West were the 49ers, and that happened. Gold was discovered first at Sutter's Mill, and this led to the gold rush. And you can see here this seam of gold here, where it was just sort of randomly found, and then all of a sudden, bunches and bunches of people started moving out there because they heard it was easy to get rich. Now, most people didn't get rich, and by the way, the San Francisco 49ers are called the 49ers because of the 1849 migration. Very few people actually got rich. Some of the people who got rich, more likely, were the people who supplied the miners. As a matter of fact, Levi Strauss, who made jeans, made very very good fabric for people that could work outside and not have to change their clothes all that much. So that's where we get jeans from even today. Supplies were really expensive because you had to either go overland or a lot of times around South America, and that's a huge water route. Sometimes people would go over the Isthmus of Panama and cut out the whole South America thing, but still that's quite a journey through jungle, but not a very short journey, thousands of miles, and would take months and months to get there. And again, the overland route 4 to 6 months, the Cape Horn route from 6 to 8 months, because you can't necessarily, going all the way around here through here, can't necessarily count on the weather being good all the way through. Yeah, gold was $16 an ounce. Again, oh my goodness, I wish I could buy gold for $16 an ounce. I could sell that quite easily because now it's at least $1,200 an ounce. And but flour was really expensive too. I mean, I can go to the store and buy a bag of flour for $3. It's 5 pounds. Now, again, back then it was 25 cents a pound, which is a pretty large amount because they could charge it because some people had money. A huge amount of people moved to California, partially because of the gold rush, but then later on because the land is pretty good in a lot of ways. California did have some advantages. Particularly, it outlawed slavery. And if you notice here, the Mexican cessation, this was the part that we basically took from Mexico when we fought them in a war. And the problem, though, is that this continually comes up. And in 1850, they resolved it, but in terms of California. But what happens when a state comes in and wants to become a part of the United States? What's going to happen with slavery? And that's something that happens continually and is a problem that just needs to be resolved every single time.